Welcome, everyone, to today's CFOLC's special presentation, Order to Revenue Excellence in the Subscription Economy, presented by Zuora. My name is Angela Tice. I'm the National Membership Chair and the Northeast Regional Director, and I'll be facilitating today's session. So I just want to go through a little bit of housekeeping before we actually get started. You might have noticed that your lines are muted, and that's really just so that there are no distractions. However, we certainly encourage your questions and your comments for today's discussion. So please feel free to put any of your questions or comments in the questions area, and I'll make sure to monitor that area so that we can certainly address any concerns that you might have. If you're a member of the CFO Leadership Council, you will receive 1 CPE for today's webcast. Now, to receive credit, you must be a current member, and you need to answer the 4 of the polling questions asked today. So we will interrupt the discussion to bring those to you and give you a chance to answer. Now, in order to answer the polling questions effectively, you must be logged into today's session. So if you've dialed in and you want to receive CPE, you need to hang up and use the direct link provided to you at registration. So in other words, you need to be on a computer in order to get CPE. Just a couple of other things, just to remind all of our members and certainly any of our guests who are on today. Since the beginning of the coronavirus crisis, the CFOLC pivoted to help support our entire community. So we moved all of our live events online. So we hope you'll take advantage and continue to connect with us. There's a full list of online programs on our website, and CPEs are offered for current CFOLC members. So we want to keep our friends and members connected. And if you're wondering how to become a member of the CFOLC, you can connect with me after the webcast. We have 2 levels of involvement, and membership does start the day you join. So if you are looking for CPE and you join today, you would actually get CPE for today's webcast. If you haven't done so already, there's still time to sign up for our national conference, and it's happening on November 11th through the 13th. It is now totally virtual, and it is free access to our premium members. So if you're interested, again, in joining the CFO Leadership Council, you do get this conference as part of your premium membership benefits. And it's a fantastic 3 days of phenomenal speakers and great workshops. So if you can join us, I highly recommend that you go online and you register today. Finally, just want to mention there's all of our webcasts, actually, or most of them, I should say, are recorded, so that our members can check in and either listen again or listen to those that you might have missed. We don't offer CPE when you're listening to the recordings, but it's always nice to kind of get some education. There's a lot of interesting things up there, so definitely check it out. And our partners have what we call virtual office hours, where you can actually visit and find excellent information in a vast amount of areas. And you can actually reach out to them directly if you have any specific questions or needs. If you don't really know how to do that and navigate through that, I highly recommend getting in touch with our National Sponsor Relations Manager, Katie Todd, or your local marketing director. Either one can really help you navigate through. So that's really it for the housekeeping. And now it is my pleasure to introduce our speaker, Emily Daigle. She's the head of Global Revenue Advisory at Zuora. Kind of interesting, and I actually love this story. Emily's Zuora experience actually started as a customer when she led the implementation of Zuora Revenue at RSA for ASC 605 and EMC for ASC 606. And now she leads the Global Revenue Advisory team at Zuora and provides revenue accounting thought leadership to help businesses grow and scale with OTR automation while increasing efficiencies and minimizing risks. And prior to Zuora, Emily was the Director of Revenue at NetScout Systems. So Emily, I just want to say thank you so much for joining us today and offering out your knowledge. I think it's fantastic, like I said before, that you were actually a customer and now you work for the company. So that's really cool.
Yeah, thanks, Angela. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, beautifully.
Wonderful. Okay, great. Thanks. Well, that was a great introduction and you covered it all for me. So thank you. I'll spare everyone from having to listen to any more of that. But really excited to be here to talk about the subscription economy and how companies can be successful. So we have seen this shift to subscriptions. You know, there's an overall shift in the market from a product-centric business model to a more customer-centric business model. You know, with the product first model, we used to more historically sell things like hardware or perpetual software licenses. Those come with an additional cost consideration. There's data centers, there's system administrators. There's so many things that go beyond that. But in contrast, what we're seeing is there's this shift to a customer first model, and we're seeing products that are being sold as a service. So for example, software as a service is a situation in which those additional cost considerations I just mentioned are covered as part of that SaaS charge. And there isn't the additional need for platform fees or technical support. That's all included. So it's really taking, some product and offering it as a service. Maybe it's infrastructure as a service, for example. Think about like AWS. Really, we're seeing anything being offered as a service, even things like Uber, that's transportation as a service, or Zoom is considered communication as a service, or even Hive is home technology as a service. So this shift to subscriptions is really leading us to more predictable revenue streams, but it's through that long-term buyer relationship that we have. Unfortunately, with that shift is a lot of challenges that come along with it. So we're going to talk through some of those here today.
Emily,
yes.
I'm sorry. I just want to make sure if you wanted to put up your presentation so that we can see it. I'm not sure if you wanted to do that.
I did, and I can anyone not see it now?
Perfect now.
Oh, you see? Okay.
Awesome.
Sorry about that, everyone.
No worries.
So it's probably making a little more sense. Thank you for pointing that out. So what I was talking about is on the left is where you can see that progression from a product first model over to the customer first model. And the product first model is much more linear, whereas the customer first model is ongoing. Now we have our Subscribed Institute. It's our unique team internal to Zuora. It's described as a dedicated think tank of folks that focus on challenges and opportunities of the subscription economy. This team really kind of takes data, analyzes those subscription data points, works with companies looking to transform their business models, and kind of helps with all those best practices. So throughout the presentation today, I will be sharing some of those insights from that team. And starting with this, we can see that companies who are rolling out subscription offerings are really growing at a rate 5 to 9 times faster than the S&P. And we've found that really comes down to the ability to provide flexibility to customers, and that's really what helps drive growth there. So companies of just about any industry are rethinking about how they go to market and how they bring their products to their customers. So technology companies, that's kind of one that we're probably all very aware of. We're moving from that on-prem software to a more cloud software as a service model. But we have things like, now we see automotive companies. They're moving their sole focus from being a manufacturing car company to thinking more about mobility offerings and how they can add customer lifetime value beyond that initial purchase. So maybe it's something like an OnStar service or other roadside assistance type offering, or maybe it's something around, even something similar or silly as subscribing to tires, for example. I was recently part of a conversation that's really quite interesting about how they can take their current good, which is a tire, and how they can offer that as a service. So we're really seeing this shift to just about anything as a service. Manufacturing companies are moving from only manufacturing devices and machines to thinking about more how they can connect those devices and really create new analytics and offerings. So we have a manufacturing customer who's actually offering a subscription service based on the usage of the machines that they previously only offered to purchase in full, that point in time purchase. We're seeing data information companies. They're just not repositories anymore. They're thinking about how they can draw out insights from that data repository and then be able to monetize that intelligence instead of just the data. So again, companies that have been successful in adopting these new ways of thinking and are really growing at a rate much faster to those that are more content in how they're going to market. Those companies are also exceeding the growth of others in the subscription economy when they really effectively and proactively set themselves up for success. So this is particularly true when companies are addressing the things that you see here. So things like managing transaction complexity. When you give customers the flexibility needed to make a subscription business model truly successful, it creates a significant amount of complexity internally, both upstream and downstream. So if the appropriate steps are really taken into consideration when establishing those subscription offerings, that's really going to help result in if you don't take that into consideration, it's really going to result in an operational nightmare, right? You're going to basically work yourself into a corner and could even, be to the demise of your transformation efforts. Things like minimizing risk. This is a big one as companies really need to make sure that they're remaining compliant with GAAP rules, regardless of what they're creating as new offerings or how they're going to market. That risk often, it can increase the risk of reporting. And so it really is important to have the right systems and controls in place to really be able to effectively mitigate that while keeping your audit costs to a minimum. And then finally, being able to enable business growth. While you're launching those new business models, it's really imperative to have the visibility to the data that really is to ensure that you've got the appropriate insights to really understand the health of your business and make informed decisions. You can, if you don't have that visibility, you can end up in a situation where you think you're making the right decisions, but without having full knowledge of how your subscribers are really interacting and how those relationships are going, you really could potentially set yourself up for failure there. So that being said, I wanted to take the opportunity to ask you. I get to speak with a lot of companies about their subscription journey, but curious for all of you on the phone, just to gauge where you're at in your subscription journey. Are you currently not offering subscriptions? Are you starting the process in which you'd like to start offering them, or maybe early on, or do you already have an established subscription business? We'll give you a minute to answer that.
Exactly. I was just going to say, Emily, I'm collecting the information now, and I'll share the results with you in just a couple more seconds. Audience, thank you so much for answering quickly. We appreciate that. Quick response means we get back to the conversation. So I'll just give a couple more seconds, Emily, and then I'll let you know what they say.
Great. Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, audience, it looks like you've answered. I'm going to close that now, and I'll just share that with everyone. So, Emily, it looks like 33% say they're currently not offering subscriptions. 23% say starting the process to offer or in early stages. And 45% say have an established subscription business. Back to you.
Great. All right. Thank you. Well, it sounds like almost half of you have an established subscription business, which is great. So, if we're going through this and you have some questions that relate directly here, please feel free to put them in the chat and we can get to those. But this is great information to have. Okay, so let's talk about complexities. If you recall one of the first slides that I tried to share and then failed to share, but shared quickly, where I illustrated that product first model on the left, that hardware, perpetual software example, those are more historically traditional models where it's easily supported by a linear business process. A customer would buy a product, it would be delivered, and then the customer would have use of that item in perpetuity and really would have little to no ongoing interaction with the company from which it purchased the product. From an operational perspective, it's not too difficult to manage once the process is really established, right? You've got your systems and your resources that could each pick up their part and complete their task and then pass it down the line. But that shift to subscriptions that offer so much growth for companies is really creating a shift in operations as well that introduces a significant amount of complexity. But, we kind of, when we step back and think about like, why, what does it mean? What do I mean by that? So really what it is subscribers are demanding freedom. They want to consume on their terms. Today's consumers want the freedom to, from obsolescence essentially, and really that burden of ownership. They want the latest right now. They want the freedom from like a time and location, like where they have to go to procure the item. They don't want to go to the store, especially now in COVID times. Maybe they're sitting on their couch at night and they want to start using something right away. So really it's that freedom to, they want to try it. They want to buy it. They want to maybe pause it. They want to restart it. They want to cancel. They want to renew, all these different things. And this whole subscription economy is really being driven by these modern customers who want the experiences and they want the outcomes, but they don't want the burden of ownership. So that value sits with the service, not necessarily with the product. But in order to really offer all of that to subscribers, businesses need the freedom to really grow and experiment and reinvent. And there are challenges around that. So with that flexibility that we want to give to subscribers, it increases complexity in different areas. 4 of the ones that I want to talk about today are rigid systems. So really maybe a lack of capabilities to be able to enable a dynamic business model. The manual burden, customer lifecycle amendments that we'll talk about create downstream burdens on accounting teams and finance teams. Limited visibility. Data is extremely critical. The metrics behind all of that data that needs that's relevant, and it needs to be applicable, and it needs to be available and easily digestible. And then complex ecosystem architecture. So that's a fancy way of saying there's a lot of different systems. They're disjointed. A lot of times there's inefficiencies around that. And so sometimes that can lead to inconsistent or incomplete data. So if we look at those as kind of like 4 main challenges, let's dive in a little bit deeper on each one of those. So apparently this is a build out, excuse me. So the ability to take new revenue streams to market and monetize them really lies within the flexibility that you have to be able to price them. So today you may be thinking of pricing in terms of cost plus, or maybe you have a cost to manufacture and then a profit margin that you're trying to reach. But it's important to remember that this pricing model that you're setting up, you need to be able to consider what the customer wants and what the value is to them, because there's a strong possibility that you find that after you set the pricing model, you may have to go back and tweak that a little bit based on customer needs. If you've had to hard code into your system how these offerings are being managed, then you're going to have a very difficult time to make those tweaks along the way. Every price or every product that you implement is a new SKU that needs to be hard coded or potentially in a legacy system, right? So let's take, say you have a car. A red car is one SKU. The same car, but in blue, might be another SKU. Maybe the blue car leased month to month is another SKU. So, each of these different offerings just proliferates from there. So in a customer-centric pricing world, pricing is determined by what the customer values, and that's going to vary by product. So for example, you might have like a general media content access fee that's recurring, while some of the premium content is only charged on a per usage basis. Now, in an ideal world, you'd be able to monetize those products in different ways without having to hard code every one of those iterations into your system. So without that ability, we're seeing companies really struggling to meet the customer needs and demands, and it hinders the potential of new offerings because you're not able to offer one particular product sold in many different ways. The second challenge we find is around the fact that subscriptions are always changing. The beauty is that the flexibility you provide gives your customers the ability to make those changes at any time, and it keeps them happy. The difficult part in that is that now it creates a downstream impact on your billing and revenue recognition teams. They take the brunt of it all, right? So every time a customer is going to make a change, maybe they want to, suspend maybe they're going on a nice hiatus for 3 months. They want to suspend their service for that period of time, and then they're going to resume when they come back. That kicks off another whole process. Maybe they want to renew, and that's going to kick off a different process. Maybe they want to change their contract term, or maybe they want to upgrade or downgrade. Whatever it is, it's going to create an amendment change. And then that's effectively going to potentially change the revenue recognition. Maybe you have to redistribute or reallocate all of the revenue earned versus the revenue deferred. And then you're having to reconcile all of your transactions to figure out basically how that one charge impacted your entire business. And there's one really interesting point that I wanted to show here, in that for B2B companies, we're seeing that there is an average of 4 finance impacting events per subscriber per year. So what I mean by that is any of those things we just spoke about, anything that's going to potentially require your finance teams to make a downstream change to that particular revenue contract, whether it's reallocating revenue, or maybe it's redistributing the revenue over a different period of time, whatever that might be. We're seeing that there are 4 of those per subscriber per year in the most flexible models that are most successful. With other companies that maybe say B to any, that we see that 4 finance impacting events per subscriber in a given month. So if you think that, then multiply that by maybe even the hundreds or even thousands, millions of customers that you have, that's all going to create an impact. So we know that revenue growth happens when we offer more flexibility, but that flexibility really comes at a price, because with the increase in subscription amendment volume, we're also seeing a direct correlation to that increase in revenue recognition complexity and risk. So this can be more, the business can help manage this, and we want to make sure that you're not in a situation where you end up with inaccurate reporting, or even worse, a restatement. So being able to set up systems in the right way so that's automated and it's not needing to be handheld by teams is going to significantly help you reduce your risk there. The third challenge that we see is around data and insights. So our Subscribed Institute that I mentioned before has recently focused a lot of their efforts on subscription metrics and how those metrics can be leveraged to successfully manage the business. Often businesses might have all the data points. Maybe it's available somewhere in the system, various systems that they're working with, but it's typically an exercise to put the puzzle pieces together, creates, it's a long process, and it's really difficult to create a repeatable reporting process to really analyze the health of the business. So these are some of the main points that our Subscribed Institute, or areas I should say, that our Subscribed Institute has called out as some key metrics that you really want to make sure that you're honing in on. And what I've done here is provided the buckets, if you will, on the left, and then maybe just an example of all of the different data that's required to go into grabbing those analytics if you don't have a system that is neatly laying all of this out there for you. So things like recurring revenue. We see this as the most important metric for subscription businesses. It's forward-looking, and it really keeps track of the revenue that a business can count on in future periods, right? So we've got our net, like here I did an example of net annual recurring revenue changes. So you can see what's happening in your business and what you can expect going forward. Is it going up or is it going down? Subscriber metrics. This is really essential for subscription business growth, if you will. So measuring the ability of the business to really acquire, retain, and then expand on existing subscribers. So being able to figure out, what does your new customer base look like? Who's active, who's renewing, who's churning, and it's going to give you the ability to really monitor that and make sure that you can minimize the churn. Subscriber value metrics. This is really to monitor and proactively manage the health of your customers. So this is going to really, help inform your growth strategies going forward. It's going to give you things like maybe average revenue per subscriber, or customer acquisition costs, or customer lifetime value, which I put up here. So it's going to give you ideas about how you can really grow your business. Retention metrics is a big one. You want to be able to positively grow your business by expanding on your existing customer relationships. It's much easier to grow your business from existing customers than it is to attract new ones. It's much less costly. All around, it's a better approach. So being able to measure retention rates helps ensure that relationships are on the right track, right? You're looking at your net retention rates, your churn rates, your renewal rates, stuff like that. Then you have receivable metrics. Those are pretty straightforward. Those are going to really help to identify and mitigate churn risk, and really just, think about how that's going to show the how healthy your cash flow is for the business. So net billing, net payments, AR aging, DSO, day sales outstanding, things like that. They're pretty fundamental metrics that we always see. And then finally, growth metrics. So this is really to help gauge the effectiveness of your growth strategy. So here I put in the Growth Efficiency Index, GEI. And that's really going to help you understand how your costs are impacting your growth. Right? The lower the ratio, the better and more effective your business is. Recurring profits, just understanding your recurring costs. So there's different things here that you can use to really help drive your business. But if you don't have the systems in place, it can be difficult to leverage them in the right way. So data is really essential, right? It doesn't just stop at the analysis that's required for your board meetings and your disclosure reporting. Key data is really going to be able to provide the insights so that you understand your business and can help drive growth. It really provides that valuable information about your subscribers, how they buy, what's working, what isn't, and it allows you to make informed and proactive decisions. So without this full visibility, it's difficult for any company to really be able to effectively run a subscription business and then be able to support that ongoing growth. So the fourth challenge here, this is going to look busy, and that's by design, because your technology stack may look like this today. If you were to map out all of the different systems, this is not unusual. We've seen many of these. Customers typically will collect dozens of systems over the years. Maybe it's billing systems and CPQ, maybe even multiple ERPs over the years. Then you've got your legacy systems. Maybe you are going through mergers and acquisitions, and rather than getting rid of systems, it's sort of like one is just stacking on top of the next. So it's just a series of customizations that you end up with in order to try and manage the business. But at the end of the day, this is a lot of cost and effort to maintain. And oftentimes it doesn't even fulfill all of the use cases that are needed. So then you've got this manual effort off to the side. So, excuse me, if you think of new product offerings, right? So each one has to be pushed through the same stack, and it has to jump through all of these hoops, hopefully without error. But, that's really difficult to even track the errors, because it's that needle in a haystack effect. If you are trying to force new product offerings into a legacy system that is hard-coded, you're going to have a very difficult time trying to go back through, and every new offering is going to add additional complexity. So I've also called out a few different customers we've worked with, and some of the pain points that they had over the years in just this exactly. And so they were really looking to streamline and make sure that they could at least have their order to revenue process be clean, so that as they have these subscriptions that they're offering, it's a clean order to revenue process and it doesn't get stuck along the way. So thinking of those challenges that we just reviewed, I'm curious where your company experiences the most complexity. Understanding it's likely more than one, but really kind of think about what's your greatest hurdle that you see for your company at the moment.
Great. So once again, I've launched the poll, audience. So quickly, if you could answer that, that would be great. And we can get back to this great presentation. I'm learning a lot already. Couple more seconds, Emily.
Sure.
Okay, I'm going to close that and I'll just share that with you really quickly. It looks like we have 38% that say contract management, 30% say billing management, and 33% say revenue management.
Okay. I think we had a little bit of I think maybe the polling question's off a little bit there, but I think that's definitely helpful to hear. Okay, so let's continue on. So really, how are the most successful high-tech companies doing this? So flexibility and customer freedom is essential to your customer business success, or your subscription business success. It's all about the subscription experience, right? We talked about it. It's just like us, right? It's everything that we want to. It's being able to get what we want, when we want it, and how we want it. So in the old world, let's call it the product economy, it was all about things and acquiring new customers, shipping, billing, one-time transactions. But now it's about relationships. And now, more and more customers are becoming subscribers because those experiences are really built around meeting customers and consumers' needs rather than a static offering or a single product. So focusing on those relationships requires a new way for us to think, rather than placing all of your bets or focus on the product or the transaction. Now with subscriptions, we're really living and breathing by the ability of our businesses to serve customers and consumers. And so the formula for growth really lies in delivering multi-channel experiences and services that just get better over time to our consumers. We really want to make sure we're focusing on retaining our existing subscribers, monitoring usage. We need to make sure we're accounting for all of that recurring revenue and finding ways to deliver ongoing value to the customers so that we build that long-term loyalty. And, I think it's important to note that the shift to subscriptions isn't just good for subscribers, right? It creates predictable recurring revenue streams that both Wall Street and the board will love just as much as, you as the company does. But really, like how do high-tech companies set themselves up for success, especially when they are early in, maybe not even started, the shift to offering subscriptions? So, excuse me, there are some key digital capabilities to consider. This illustrates the overall customer journey within the various delivery systems, if you will, that we see involved throughout the subscriber lifecycle. It's very busy. At the top, you can see is the subscriber journey. So that's what's happening as a customer just looking for this service. They're exploring it and trying to, see if it's what they really want. Then they're going to order it and pay for it. And then they're going to, over time, expand on it, and they're going to change. And so it's this model where we have so many different cross-functional areas to consider. So in the delivery system, you can see along the way, you need to make sure that you're able to set up the right CRM, and you've got all of your models set up, and they're flexible for those customers. You're able to set up all of your rate cards, right? You need maybe usage rating or usage mediation. Billing, there's a whole process that goes through with being able to set up and send out bills, but then you need to be able to iterate on those. There's payment. You have to collect payment on it. You have to recognize revenue. You have to close the books. You've got to report on all of that. You actually have to keep delivering the product. You have to support the product, and then you're going to want to expand on that. So you're going to be doing upsells. So the gray boxes below really represent all of the various digital capabilities that need to be taken into consideration. So it's not a set number of capabilities, but it's really kind of like the most common ones that we see. And this is going to vary from business to business. but really this is a good visual representation of just the vast number of potential touch points and capabilities that need to be considered and ultimately automated to really manage a successful subscription business. So if we take this visual and then maybe layer in a couple of different scenarios, I think you'll understand the importance of ensuring that these capabilities are really fully addressed and are running effectively. So in this example, this is a very real example of a company that lacks many of the digital capabilities to enable a successful subscription business. They're addressing some of the capabilities really well, not many. There's a number of partially optimized boxes here in the dark blue, so they're working on it. But what really stands out to me when I look at this is the sheer number of red boxes that's really indicating digital capabilities that aren't structured in a way to accommodate subscriptions. And this is because it's maybe a standard ERP system that isn't set up to handle those subscriptions. So when we first start talking to businesses, maybe they're just dipping their toe in the subscription pool. This is not at all uncommon. It's quite customary for businesses early in their subscription transformation to look like this. But what I did is I also took another example here that shows, it's obviously a stark contrast to the previous slide, but this represents a company that has gone through the subscription transformation. They've addressed a number of the various digital capabilities. They've put the appropriate systems in place that are really built to handle the subscriber journey. So the process is not only more streamlined for the subscriber, right? And now it's going to be more cyclical, but also for the internal cross-functional teams who are tasked with operationalizing all of the subscription offerings and business. So I think what this ultimately conveys is that the subscription transformation has to be really managed across multiple dimensions. And when you have the data spread across those multiple dimensions, it's really critical to ensure that you have the appropriate systems in place that allow your teams to effectively manage your subscription business so that you're set up for success from the start. So I do have another poll question here. If you think of some of the digital capabilities that you just saw, how mature would you consider your company to be to handle a subscription business effectively, meaning both process and systems that you have in place?
So the question here is your order to revenue process automated? And the answers are yes, fully, somewhat, or still. So audience, if you can answer that quickly, that would be great. A couple seconds, Emily.
Sure.
They're so great. They answer quickly. We love that.
That's a good thing.
Okay, audience, I'm closing the poll. Thank you. And I'll just share that really quickly. Looks like 11% says yes, fully automated, 47% say somewhat, and 42% say still manual.
And that's not entirely surprising to me. I think, we see even companies that are engaged in the subscription business and trying to launch that. Sometimes it feels easier to jump in and just start with the offering right away. And then later on, we're seeing a progression of setting up systems to help automate those. But I think if I can make any recommendation is to try and do that in parallel as much as you can. I think that only sets yourself up for success, and then also, helps customers experience as well. So you don't end up, with such a large trough maybe in the beginning before you really start to see that climb in growth. Okay, so we spoke about the flexibility and subscriber freedom, and we just saw various capabilities or digital capabilities to consider. And we really see that companies are most successful when they focus on three clear goals. So offering flexibility is huge. So onboarding new revenue streams, having that available to their customer or to your customers. scaling order to revenue business processes, that it's huge to have that in place. And, any business won't be successful without having that ability to have it automated and really have all of those cross-functional teams aligned. And modernizing the ecosystem architecture. I think if you think back to that messy slide with all the different systems that I showed, being able to really figure out what really can handle and provide the ability for you to manage your subscription business effectively. So on these topics, so I did want to make sure that I shared some of the data that our Subscribed Institute has generated that I think you'll find interesting. So here, it hones on the idea that flexibility is really key to growth, right? So when you are providing that flexibility and freedom to your existing subscribers, there is a huge correlation to the success and growth of the business. So it's really key to the long-term subscription success if you are building and maintaining healthy long-term relationships with your customers, right? So here you can see that upsell and cross-sell potential they found is generally, 5 to 20% for new customers, which is still good. But for existing customers, that number jumps from 60 to 70%. So that's huge. So if you're able to provide that flexibility to your customers, here we can see the number of customer interactions per year on the left. And then on the right, you can see how that translates into growth. So when there are 2 or more interactions that your customers are seeing or able to partake in, there's over 25% annual revenue growth rate that we're seeing because customers are feeling that they are able to make those changes and those purchases, everything that they want to be able to do, they're able to do that, and it's maintaining them as a customer. And then you're able to continue to upsell to them. You're expanding on their footprint, and you're able to increase your revenue. This is some statistics that our Zuora CEO, Tien Zhu, has posted on LinkedIn earlier this year. And he gets a number of views. And this one actually, these statistics that he shared were his most viewed LinkedIn post ever, which was really interesting to me. And it's around reducing churn, but through offering the flexibility of suspend and resume, which I thought was really quite interesting. So here what you can see is as customers are able to suspend those services that they have, then we're seeing that there is lower churn rate. So here, companies that have suspended subscriptions, the churn rate is down to 25%, whereas high churn companies are up at 37%, and companies with no suspended subscriptions have a higher churn rate as well. And so I think it's really important to understand that while you think of suspending a contract, you think, well, now I'm not going to get the revenue on that. But really what it is you're increasing the customer satisfaction, you're helping that customer relationship, and they're going to remain loyal to you so that they're going to come back. They're going to restart that. They're going to restart that subscription, and they're going to have a longer term customer relationship with you. Then we also see usage pricing. This is really interesting to me. So it's funny how usage doesn't necessarily mean you should go out and offer all usage-based. As you can see here, the greatest growth rate comes from a balance of both usage and sustainable recurring revenue. So if you had all usage and then suddenly, your usage drops off, your revenue is going to drop off. So it's important to maintain that balance. So you've got some usage because customers can grow with you, right? And so that's important to offer. But when customers' usage is low, you still want to make sure that you've got that recurring revenue in place as well. So it's finding that balance, and really it's through leveraging that data, right? And implementing the appropriate systems to help maintain that balance and to really see the significant growth. It's the balance between flexibility, sustainable recurring revenue, and being able to find the right mix of those for your business that you'll have with the right levels of data, the right levels of insight, and really be able to drive that. And this here, this is some interesting benchmarks that I wanted to share as well. So 70% of a subscription company's revenue comes from existing customers. So again, that's upsells, add-ons, renewals. That's a big number. If you think about it, on average, if that's what happens with a subscription business, that's why it's so important to hold on to those customers. You want them to be happy. You want them to be loyal. You want them to tell their friends and their family so that they come and use that as well. And so here it kind of breaks down a little bit further to show some other data points as well. So if all subscriptions average one change, then you can expect growth to triple, which is huge. So here on the right, what this is showing is you might expect a 9% growth rate if there aren't any subscription changes or amendments. If you have somewhere between 1 and 10 subscription changes over the life cycle, you'll see a 20% growth rate, but you'll see up to 28% based on the data that our Subscribed Institute has analyzed, that with that one change per subscription, you can see that much of a growth rate. And again, it comes with the flexibility and being able to give customers and subscribers the flexibility to purchase what they want, when they want it, and how they want it. And then companies that do have more of those subscription changes see a reduction in churn, which makes sense, right? The more they're able to tweak along the way, maybe not just at a point in time when that customer buys for the first time, situations change, lives change. I mean, look at us in COVID. A year ago, none of us would have expected to be where we are today. I know my subscriptions have changed significantly just since a year ago. So having the ability and the flexibility to offer that will help reduce churn risk and increase your overall growth. So based on some of the data that I did just show from our Subscribed Institute, that was sort of a few snapshots from that data that they've provided. We wanted to also offer it up for anyone on the call. If anyone would like to receive a copy of the latest Subscription Economy Index report, our SEI report, from Zuora on the subscription economy, that includes a lot of that information and a lot more. We wanted to throw that out there as an offering.
Thank you for doing that, Emily. And of course, we'll share that with you when, later on today.
Yep, so absolutely.
You can take advantage of and get some more information. Okay, so I'm going to close that now and we'll just get right back to you.
All right. Well, that actually concludes my presentation today. I wanted to, I'm happy to answer any questions. I didn't see any pop up in the chat while we were going through. Happy to answer any because I do know we have about 10 minutes left, but also wanted to offer up if there aren't any questions now and something does come up later, I'm more than happy to field questions at a later time as well.
You know what? I think there's one, it seems like it's a statement. A lot of people are asking for copies of the presentation. We do record this. There is one, I think this is a question. I worry about my company's information being used. Do you have permission to do this?
Do you mean, I'm guessing the person means, is Zuora at liberty to use this? Any information that we share that is business specific, we do make sure that we have the authorization to use that. So we do not just go out and use anybody's information and just share it with everyone. We do get permission first.
Yeah, I guess he was saying this type of analysis, using my customer data to do your own analysis. I'm not really sure.
Yeah, and any of the analysis data that we have is encrypted, so we don't have it tied to a customer name in any way for that.
Great.
Great question. Yeah, great question.
Okay, well, you know what? It looks like, if they're thinking of anything else, of course, please do ask a question. We have a couple of minutes left. And again, Emily, I just want to say thank you again for sharing some really great information here. I think there's just so much to think about when you're bringing in all of this and, kind of thinking about, how you're going to bring it back out and how you're going to utilize it and make it all happen. So I just want to say thank you for offering out your knowledge, and for all of our audience, I want to say thank you for joining us today. And actually, I see a couple of questions. Two, actually. How has COVID affected your business and, in general, subscription businesses generally?
Great
Emily?
question. So yeah, that's a really great question. I think I hate to say there's anything good about COVID because there is not. However, the subscription business model is actually one that we've seen both Zuora and many other subscription businesses flourish during this time. I think it depends a little bit on the type of subscription you're offering. Obviously, if there's anything commuter-wise right now that would be offered as a subscription, probably not the best bet. Maybe if it's restaurant related, maybe not the best bet. That being said, I think there are challenges that companies are finding where they're now looking to monetize differently because of COVID. So we've actually seen some positive growth over it. I think Zoom is a perfect example of a company that's killing it, where, if you just think in general, I'm just thinking in general terms, at any given time, my kids, my husband, and everybody's on a Zoom at the same time, and we're all on different accounts, and that's just one household. So, if you think globally what's going on, I think there's some real benefit and opportunity out there. Like I said, it is offering an opportunity for folks and different companies to think big. We actually do have some point of sale customers that you would think are maybe headed in a direction where if it's point of sale, maybe it's a point of sale register, if you will. But they're finding all of these e-commerce online ways to be able to still monetize even in this time. So it's very interesting to see how everyone's adapting to it. But I think the one thing about the subscription economy and subscription business models is that it really is, because it's a recurring revenue model, even when you have these times where it's more difficult, that revenue, that recurring revenue is sustaining your business, even if maybe your new customer activity is dropping, you're still seeing and can still predict what you have for recurring revenue, and you're able to also leverage any of your existing customers to try and upsell. So, I think from a Zuora perspective, we're very lucky that we have not been negatively impacted. And I do know, I don't want to take away and not address the fact that there are a number of companies who unfortunately have not seen that same benefit. So I want to make sure I'm also cognizant of that and not trying to make it sound like this is a fabulous thing, because it's definitely not. But, I think Zuora's been very lucky, and I've seen a number of other subscription companies that have been, maintaining their health throughout the COVID crisis.
Yeah, without a doubt, without a doubt. One more to that, Emily. Has the low cost of capital environment changed the relative attractiveness of subscription pricing versus perpetual license or otherwise?
Definitely. So I'm in a lot of conversations where it's definitely enticing to folks to be able to say, like, I don't have to incur this cost up front. And there is, the CapEx, OpEx offset that you've got to consider. But I think overall, just the savings that companies see in a subscription model and having all of those costs bundled into their X as a service, X can be anything. But being able to have the ability to save maybe some resources that would have to be allocated to like that perpetual license maintenance or ongoing support and upgrades or whatever that might be, data centers. And they're able to take the savings from that and be able to allocate those to other areas of the business.
Thank you so much, Emily. Yeah, so we just have a couple of minutes left, and it looks like those are the questions. So, always giving a couple minutes back to everyone is always a good thing, right? So happy to do that, right? So again, I'm just going to say thank you to all of our audience for joining us today, and I'm sure that they received some valuable and practicable information. If you'd like to continue today's discussion, I encourage you actually to reach out to Emily. I'm sure she'll be happy to answer any in-depth questions that you might have. And I will say again, thank you, Emily, for spending your afternoon with us. And this does.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. This does conclude the presentation on Order to Revenue Excellence in the Subscription Economy. So everyone stay safe, stay connected, and we'll see you on the next one.
Thank you.